A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Way up north, to Alaska. Way up north, to Alaska.
Well, we are playing North to Alaska.
We found Alan Dershowitz.
We did. We had to comb everywhere, and we didn't look at Alaska at first, but now that we know where he is. What are you doing in Alaska, Professor?
Hey, I'm on a cruise with my wife, my daughter, and my son-in-law. We're in this big city called Sitka, Alaska, which was the Russian capital of Alaska before the Russians foolishly sold it to America for 2 cents an acre. It's the most beautiful spot in the world, and they sold it to us for 2 cents an acre.
We should have bought Greenland.
I tell you, we tried. I mean, if Mr. Catsimatidis was around, he would have bought all of Russia at that price.
Yeah, that's a bargain. By the way, are you doing like any like Iditarods, or are you watching the whales? I love Alaska.
Well, there's no Iditarod because it's the summer, but I went on a trip with Huskies, and they pulled me a few miles, 16 Huskies. It was great fun, and we saw whales, and, we're having a terrific time.
Wow. Well, speak of like time. Did you hear the news?
Back to
reality. Yeah, back to reality. Did you hear what's going on with Trump? The judge came out, and reduced the gag order partially so he can do witnesses, which means he can go after Michael Cohen.
Yeah, but too little, too late, and he can't go after the judge's daughter, which he ought to do. If they can, Biden is going to say you're a convicted felon 34 times. He should say, look, I have a complete answer to this, but my hands are tied because this New York judge that unfairly convicted me, which he's allowed to say, let me tell you, I'd love to tell you a little bit about his background and about his relatives, but I can't. And you're being denied the right to hear the truth from me. It's not my First Amendment rights. It's your First Amendment rights. And they're making me debate Biden with one hand tied behind my back, and it's unfair. He ought to make a big deal about that during the debate. Yeah, he can talk about the witnesses, but he can't talk about the jurors. He can't talk about the daughter who is raising big money.
You can't talk, Alan. He can't talk about Colangelo being run on a contract for the Justice Department in the White House.
Yeah, and I think he should be free to say anything he wants under the First Amendment. I can't believe the New York Court of Appeals actually said there's no First Amendment right involved here. There's no more First Amendment right than to prevent prior restraint. The framers of the First Amendment talked explicitly about prior restraint. I was one of the lawyers in the Pentagon Papers case. I know about prior restraint. A gag order is prior restraint. It's a core violation of the First Amendment. How dare the New York Court of Appeals say it's not a First Amendment issue? Of course it's a First Amendment issue, and they should have reversed it. Even Judge Marchand said today, well, I'd like to keep this going, but I can't because of the First Amendment. And so he had to limit the gag order, but it's too little too late. And you can't have a marketplace of ideas with one of the stalls in the marketplace being partially shut down. And that's what the gag order does. Look, I think the debate's going to be fascinating because nobody cares about the issues in the debate. This is a debate between two exhibits. Exhibit A is the President of the United States, and everybody's going to watch to see whether he's competent, whether he can govern, whether he's just a surrogate now for Kamala Harris who will take over. That will be what people are watching. And with Trump, it's going to be an issue of does he slip up? Does he say something foolish, as he said in the past? It's going to be character. It's character versus competency. It has nothing to do with the merits. You can actually watch the debate probably with the sound off.
Or listen to it on WABC, because we'll be on.
That would be the best thing, yeah.
Absolutely. Professor Dershowitz, Craig Eaton has a question.
It's going to be the most watched television in months and months and months. And I'm really looking forward to it. But I think President Trump needs to be cognizant of the fact that he can't attack him. He shouldn't be attacking him. He should just stick to the issues. Focus on what he did when he was the president and move forward and make his case to the American people.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And I think the reason that Trump has the advantage in this debate is he can control what people are looking for about him. He can avoid saying what he said about John McCain. He can say things and control himself, whereas the competency issue is not within Joe Biden's control. if he's asked a series of questions and he is unable to answer that, that's not something he can prepare for. And so I think Trump has the advantage because of the nature of what we're going to be watching for in this debate.
Yeah, I think so, too. Professor Dershowitz, also the other thing we're bracing for to see what happens this week with the Supreme Court is the immunity issue. That's supposed to come at the end of the month. It's a few days left.
Yeah, but I think they've extended their calendar now a couple of days. I suspect they're having a problem. I don't think this is a conspiracy to delay the opinion so that the case can't go forward until after the election. That's what some, conspiracy theorists are saying. I think the court is divided, and I think we're going to see 6 opinions here. And in the end, I think they'll split the difference. I think the plurality of the majority will say, of course he has immunity for things he did as president that were presidential, and that immunity, of course, extends beyond the time that he's no longer president. But he doesn't have immunity for purely political acts. And if they're smart, the Supreme Court will say, and we remand the case back to the district court for a determination of precisely which acts are presidential and which acts are outside the presidential immunity. That's how I predict the case will come out.
Now, you said they extended it. Do you know how many days? That's interesting.
I don't know, but usually they end by the end of this month. But I think they're going into a couple of days in July. At least that's what I've heard. I haven't confirmed it, but that's what I heard. And, there's no rule. They could do several things. They're not going to. They could hold the case over and say we're not going to decide it until next term. They did that with Brown versus Board of Education back in 1953, 1954. They could say, we're not ready. We're going to come back and reconvene in the middle of July. I don't think they'll do that because all the justices have vacation plans. They go off. They teach at universities in Europe. They do other things over the summer. So I think they're going to want to get the last case resolved before they take off a vacation.
Professor Dershowitz, what do you think that, like Judge Merchan, like the rest of, I think, the country and the world is going to be tuning into this debate and seeing, okay, are there any violations, based on, and then definitely go, okay, well, let me write down these 5 violations or these 10 when I go to sentencing on July 7th. Do you think he actually is going to say, look, these are other ones that we're going to add because they claim he's violated a whole bunch of other times because Trump doesn't want to be hamstrung. And what is he going to do at sentencing as a result?
Well, first of all, he gives the Trump people a good appellate issue because you can't sentence somebody for violating an unconstitutional gag order, and the gag order is unconstitutional. He's challenged it, and the American public has the right to hear his points of view on everything. I don't think he should violate the gag order, but I think he should make the gag order an issue in the debate so as to blunt Biden's otherwise advantage of being able to call him a felon, 34-time felon, and Trump can't answer. He can't give a full answer. He can give an incomplete answer, but he can't give a full answer, and that's not fair to the American public. Forget about Donald Trump. It's not fair to you and me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Professor Dershowitz, we want you to have a great time up in Alaska.
I appreciate it.
Oh, have fun. How beautiful.
Be back soon.
Have a great trip, Professor.
Does the television work? And the radio work?
It does.
Okay.
Television works. I watched the last period of the Stanley Cup playoffs last night, and I'm going to listen to the debate, obviously. I'm going to be in Anchorage for the debate. Yeah.
How beautiful. Have a great trip. We can't wait to hear more about it. Oh,
good. Take care. Be well. Thanks.